On today's show, Houston Rockets ranked 20th in the latest NBA power rankings. Is that a fair or unfair ranking for the Houston Rockets after coming off their 41-41 season? Who should be higher or lower on the rankings list? We're going to unpack all that and so much more on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way, the number one way that you can help our show out is to comment anything below the YouTube video. Just do a drive-by and say, "Go Rockets." It helps us out a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. On today's show, we're going to get into this latest NBA power rankings courtesy of NBC. So we'll be checking them out, and the Rockets clocking in at 20th, and on the surface, that seems a little disrespectful given how strongly the Rockets finished the season, clocking in at 41-41, but we'll navigate this list and see if this is a fair or unfair ranking for the Houston Rockets, and then we'll also take tabs on the other teams across the power rankings list and see who should be higher or lower accordingly across the board. And then we're going to get to a little bit of stuff later on, the latest on what I'm hearing about the Houston Rockets practice facility, their jerseys, and one more fun little segment that we're going to start running back occasionally on Mondays. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. But first, let's go ahead and tackle what NBC had to say about the Houston Rockets and their reasoning for clocking in the Rockets at 20th. So let's see. The Rockets clocked in at 20th on this NBC power ranking, 41-41 record this past season. So let's see what they had to say. This ranking could end up being too low if Houston can build off of what we saw after the All-Star break last season. Alperen, Sengun, and Jalen Green are at the heart of that potential improvement, and both are in contract years. Houston wants to see if they can earn those big paydays. For Sengun, is he worth 5 years and $200 million? Add in Reed Shepherd, who was the standout star of Summer League, and this is an interesting young team with some veteran help from Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. The postseason is a target for this team. Okay, I'm not going to debate anything there. I think that's all more or less accurate. I will say that I would have liked to see a little bit more breakdown as far as, what the Rockets actually accomplished last season. No acknowledgement of losing Tari, Eason, or adding Steven Adams, who didn't play a single second for the Rockets last year. So those are some things to actively factor into the consideration here. And I feel like, again, a couple those two moves in particular, right? Losing Tari Eason for 75% of the season last year and him only playing 21 games on a hurt leg, as well as the addition of Steven Adams. I feel like those are two of the most under the radar. I can't even call them acquisitions, right? Because it's not like that. Well, I guess Steven Adams is an acquisition, but for Tari Eason, just his sheer return to the lineup, and then obviously in the injection of Steven Adams into what the Rockets are trying to do. As long as Steven Adams is at least 75% of what he was pre-injury, he's going to be incredible for this Rockets team. And then you look up and down what is effectively going to be their bench unit, which we're going to have to do. We're going to do a breakdown pod somewhere in the future, kind of navigating the Rockets, all the different potential lineups for the Houston Rockets, what's going to be their most potent offensive lineup, defensive lineup, closing lineup, all these different factors. And we'll explore that in a future episode, as well as trying to figure out the minutes allocation for these guys up and down the roster. But you look at just their bench unit alone, right? What projects to be their bench unit: Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, Amin Thompson and Steven Adams. That is a really, really talented bench unit. Now, it's also an incredibly young bench unit. I fully expect them to still stagger the veterans in key situations here and there. Jeff Green will be used situationally. It'll be probably very matchup dependent for Jeff Green, but I fully expect, Fred VanVleet will spend some time with that second unit. Dillon Brooks will spend some time with that second unit. Both Sengun and Jalen will likely spend some time with that second unit, because otherwise you're rolling out there with 2 second-year guys, a rookie, a third-year guy who effectively only played 21 games, and then veteran Steven Adams kind of babysitting that bunch. I don't think we'll see many line changes for the Houston Rockets out of that lineup. But just to get back on track here, for the Rockets, clocking in at 20th, you start looking elsewhere at the rest of the list just in front of the Houston Rockets, at least the Western Conference teams just in front of the Houston Rockets. You have the LA Clippers listed at 19th, the Lakers at 17, the Kings at 16, and the Golden State Warriors at 15. Now, if you'll remember from when we did our over-under episode talking about the win total predictions courtesy of FanDuel.com, the Rockets, Warriors, and Lakers are all neck and neck right there at 43.5 wins as their prediction, as their over-under tally for wins. And going at least off of this power ranking scale, the Warriors all the way up at 15 ahead of the Sacramento Kings. I don't know if I buy that. Like this, I feel like this article may have been written with some favoritism towards the Bay Area. Let's see what they had to say about the Warriors here in their little blurb. Klay Thompson being gone still feels surreal, but the Warriors replaced him and Chris Paul with Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton, and Kyle Anderson. Golden State is a little deeper and better balanced than a season ago. They held on to the youth movement of Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga for now, at least, and those two plus Trace Jackson Davis should take a step forward. This team still doesn't have a secondary shot creation threat to take the pressure off Steph Curry. The Warriors are not contenders, but they should be a little better than a season ago. See, I just don't know if I agree with that. Like Kyle Anderson gives them a little bit of playmaking, but D'Anthony Melton is a defensive specialist and a spot up knockdown shooter offensively. Buddy Hield is like exclusively a spot up jump shooter. He can do a little bit more with the basketball than that. And Slow-Mo is not like a major offensive threat. I mean, he's a decent playmaker. I just don't know how I feel about the idea of the Golden State Warriors actually getting better after losing Klay Thompson, who was still an important piece of what they were trying to accomplish. And again, you're another year older with Draymond, with Steph. And the key point there is we saw what it looked like a couple seasons ago when Steph Curry had to put the Warriors on his back and try to do his best James Harden impersonation. It did not end well. So I don't think that the Warriors are actually a better team this next season. I really don't buy them at 15th. On these power rankings. I think they should be considerably lower. I think they should be a lot closer to where the Rockets are, all things considered. And even the LA Lakers at 17th in these power rankings. Again, the Rockets were right there neck and neck with LA and Golden State as far as the win totals predictions. So it doesn't make sense to me that they are respectively 2 spots or 3 spots, I guess, and 5 spots ahead of where the Rockets are ranked at 20th. So I don't really agree with those rankings at all. I want to get into what they had to say about the LA Lakers rankings here in just a second, and then we'll kind of take a zoom out and see the other teams as they're stacked up across the rest of the NBA landscape. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, as promised, I do want to read this little blurb that they have about the Lakers and circle it back to the Rockets to kind of gauge here. But it says, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are Olympians and top 15 players in the NBA. But has the Lakers front office done enough around them to propel this team forward? JJ Redick takes over as coach, but there will be a learning curve for him. Massive question marks there, absolutely. The Lakers should get Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent back healthy to help with depth, and rookie Dalton Connect can provide shooting, but last season LeBron remained the energy barometer of this team. They played as he played. That's a lot to ask over 82 games of a guy turning 40 in December. See, I feel like these power rankings are not doing a good enough job. Like, they're almost downplaying the age element here for both the age and the injury concern element for the Lakers and definitely the Warriors. I am curious what they had to say about the LA Clippers, who did clock in one spot ahead of the Houston Rockets. Now, again, when we did our win totals predictions, the LA Clippers were listed at 40.5 wins. So 3 wins lower on the prediction from Las Vegas for the LA Clippers, and yet they are ahead of the Rockets on the power rankings. Let's see what they said there. Another ranking that may prove to be too low. Paul George may have left, but this is a good team. The Clippers still have Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. They put a solid wing in Derek Jones Jr. into PG-13 slot, and there are solid role players like Ivica Zubac and Nicholas Batum. Do nothing, and this feels like a play-in team at least. And if Leonard and Harden can stay healthy, maybe top 6. However, the Clippers' biggest star next season will be the team's new home, the Intuit Dome. Now, for a guy who has missed as much time as he has in Kawhi Leonard, like just looking at these last handful of seasons. All right, so last year, he did manage to play 68 games. The year before that, he played 52. The year before that, didn't play because of the ACL. Before that, 52 games, 57 games, 60 games, 9 games. Kawhi Leonard has not been healthy. He didn't even take part in Team USA or Olympic basketball because he played for a couple days at Team USA practice, and then immediately he was like, nope, I'm out of here. I will not be competing. I'm going to be sitting out. I don't know how much stock I can place in this Clippers team. Another James Harden, yet another year older. PG-13, at least while he was there, was able to take some of the pressure off of the Clippers and the way that James Harden and Kawhi Leonard both played. I mean, the Clippers led the league in isolations last year, and I don't know exactly if they're going to be able to change their identity over one summer. I feel like it's just going to be more or less the same of Kawhi Leonard and James Harden taking turns isolating, and it's going to look really, really disjointed and bad when they have off nights or if they're just flat out unavailable. I think the Clippers are easily one of the teams most poised to flame out this next season. So you start looking at that. You start looking at the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Golden State Warriors there as 3 very real possibilities for the Houston Rockets to leapfrog here in these early power rankings. It doesn't feel like Houston should be all the way down at 20th. I get it. I'm going to try and take the red tinted shades off for a second. There are a considerable number of questions for this Houston Rockets team as well, but I think that for anybody who watched this team as closely as I did, at least last year, you can see that they're not just, even though they are relying considerably on a lot of the young guys and a lot of internal improvement out of the core 7 to propel this team forward, it doesn't seem like an unreasonable ask given just how impressive all of the Rockets young guys have been to this point, right? You just go to last season, right? Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore, both finding ways to be impactful as rookies is absurd to even think about. It's rare to even have one rookie that can be impactful at a very, very high level as a rookie, and the Rockets managed to have 2 of them, 2 of the best rookies from the draft class. So they're going to be another year older, another year wiser, more experienced. They're not going to be learning on the fly like they were as rookies last season. Reed Shepherd comes in as a rookie, but he projects to have an immediate impact on the team. We saw how his play looked in Summer League. Imagine that, but surrounded by legitimate NBA level talent around him. He's going to be wheeling and dealing like crazy. He's going to look like a mini Fred VanVleet out there on the court whenever he subs in. And then you add in Tari Eason in the mix, whose impact cannot be understated. fresh off his rehabilitation, missed him in year 2, but he'll be back, and I'm sure he's going to be hungry and playing with a chip on his shoulder since he missed such a significant portion of his sophomore campaign. Jabari Smith Jr., a sleeper to have yet another massive improvement. I know we've talked a lot about, the year 4 expectations for Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, but Jabari going to year 3, I thought he had a pretty impressive bounce back in year 2, getting to a place where he was not only bouncing back from a really rough rookie season, but really carving out a name for himself defensively, getting to a place where he's a more consistent, reliable outside shooter, adding a little bit more to his offensive bag, the turnarounds, the post-ups, the one dribble midi pull-ups, driving to the rim and finishing using his length, using his size, the offensive rebounding. Like, he added a lot to his game. So there's a very distinct possibility that we see a potential kind of year 3 leap from Jabari Smith Jr. And then that doesn't even that still leaves out the 2 most veteran pieces, I should say, of the Rockets' young core in Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green, who we know what they're capable of. We've seen what they play like at their peak. Sengun has a very legitimate chance to become an all-star this next season. And if Jalen Green plays the way that he played in the month of March, then my God, this Rockets team is absolutely stacked. I don't know how you don't look at this team and think they absolutely have a shot. That line about the Clippers potentially being a top 6 seed, that line should have been included in the Rockets power ranking. Because if everything breaks right for this Rockets team, I feel like there's no way that they're not at least flirting with that 6 seed kind of territory in the Western Conference. Now, kind of moving around and taking a look at some of the other teams on this list, let's go up to the top. Boston Celtics, deservedly so, ranked at number 1 on the list. I think there's very little argument there. OKC ranked at number 2. Not even upset about that. I am curious to see where the Sixers are. All right, Philadelphia 76ers all the way down at 6th. I think that's pretty fair. Let's see the teams they have in between. They've got the Dallas Mavericks at 3rd. That seems like a bit of an overreaction given I don't want to call it a lucky finals run, but Dallas really, really benefited from the way that the playoff bracket broke, because I feel like if Dallas had run into the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic in the postseason, they would not have made it to the NBA Finals. They just wouldn't have. The Mavericks basically needed the Minnesota Timberwolves to knock out Jokic and the Nuggets to then have a chance to make it to the NBA Finals. And the T-Wolves, it's so crazy when you think about it, because so much of the NBA postseason is all about matchups. And the Timberwolves were the worst possible matchup for the Nuggets, but then subsequently the Mavericks were also a really, really bad matchup for the Timberwolves. So it's almost like a weird game of like rock, paper, scissors, where each one has a chance to beat the other one. And so in this case, Mavericks beat Wolves, Wolves beat Nuggets, Nuggets would have beat Mavericks, I should say, if they had encountered each other in the postseason. So a lot of that's going to depend on just how things shake out, but I guess I can't really argue the Mavericks at 3. Getting Klay Thompson is huge for them. Adding Najee Marshall is big. I don't know. I think that the Mavericks did get significantly better, but I also think that they overachieved a bit this past season. So I think their moves made them better, but more or less put them on the same tier as maybe the Timberwolves and Nuggets. So maybe they won't have to overachieve as much this season. But I'm not going to discredit the Timberwolves and Nuggets. I really like both of those two teams. The 76ers are going to be that's going to be one of my league pass teams this next season. Watching how Paul George meshes with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey out east, in addition to all the additional support that they have, the key role players, Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, so many pieces on that 76ers team. They've got depth. They've got star power. This is probably the best Sixers team that they have fielded in Joel Embiid's entire career. So the Sixers should be the team giving the Boston Celtics the biggest run for their money in the Eastern Conference. However, the New York Knicks are right there too, and they're behind the 76ers just a skosh. A lot of it's going to come down to health for both of these teams, but the Knicks going all in with Mikal Bridges, and you've got hopefully Julius Randle coming back healthy off surgery, coming off a huge season with the Nova Knicks, the Villanova Knicks. Yeah, I can't fault them for that. You could flip 76ers and New York Knicks 6 and 7, whatever. I wouldn't be upset at either of those. Although I do think maybe there's an argument for either of those two teams to be ahead of a few of those Western Conference teams listed 2 through 5 there, I should say. Milwaukee Bucks at 8, Phoenix Suns at 9, Indiana Pacers at 10. Not too many exceptions there. The Grizzlies at 11 seems like a really, I don't want to say a reach, because the Grizzlies were an incredibly talented team with a healthy Ja Morant, but TBD on what he looks like coming back from shoulder surgery, right? If he's the same player that he was before, then yeah, the Grizzlies are going to be one of the top teams in the Western Conference. And there shouldn't be any ifs, ands, or buts about that. When you're missing your best player, you're going to have a rough season. Ja Morant comes back. That Grizzlies team's winning at minimum 45 games, somewhere in that 45 to 55 range for sure for the Grizzlies. Won't dive too much more into these other mid-tier teams. Cavaliers, Magic, Pelicans. Yeah, Pelicans right there ahead of the Golden State Warriors at 14th. It feels like there's just a glut of Western Conference teams in that 10 through 20 range, and then a lot of Eastern Conference teams rounding things down. 21, Toronto Raptors. 22, Atlanta Hawks. 24, Chicago Bulls. 25, Charlotte Hornets. 26, Detroit Pistons. 29, Brooklyn Nets. And 30th, last but certainly not least, the Washington Wizards. So that is a lot. Those are your NBA power rankings courtesy of NBC. How do you feel about where the Rockets clocked in the power rankings at 20th? Was that fair? Unfair? Should they be higher? Should they be lower? I definitely don't think they should be lower, but we'll see what you have to say about that. Let us know in the YouTube comments. But coming up, I want to get into a few more topics here. The latest that I've heard on the Houston Rockets practice facility, a potential jersey or like brand revamp for the Rockets, as well as a new Monday segment we'll be rolling out. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Look, I don't know about you. My least favorite thing when I'm buying tickets could be to go to baseball game, basketball game, football game, concert, whatever, is you're going through the ticket buying process. You get to the very end, and then they price gouge you. They hit you with the digital handling fee, the service charges, and all these little fees, right? You wind up sometimes paying more in fees than you do for your actual tickets. It sucks. Doesn't happen with Game Time. They give you their all-in price. It's fully transparent up front, so you know exactly how much you're paying throughout the entire process. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, going to get to a few different things here in this final segment. I want to preface it, though, by saying thank you to everyone who chimed in on social media or on YouTube, because as we're kind of diving into the dog days of the NBA offseason, probably on a week-by-week basis, I'm going to keep floating it out there. What topics are you interested in hearing about? Because it does get a little hard with the content creation around this time of year. Not that there's not a ton of different topics and a ton of different things that we can talk about, regarding this team, but it does help me to know what you, the listener, want to hear about. So I do appreciate everybody who shared their thoughts about what they were curious in. And a lot of people brought up these two topics in particular. So this is the latest. This is what I know so far about these two things. The latest on the Rockets practice facility, as well as the Houston Rockets jerseys and any potential rebrand for their kind of jersey identity. And then we'll get to our fun new little Monday segment here that we'll have. Nothing serious, just some good fun. But let's start with the practice facility. So I do know that they're not actively using it yet. Players are still working out, and they're still using the practice facility attached to Toyota Center for now. I do believe construction has completed, though, so I think it's probably right now. My understanding is I think it's just a process of like getting everything moved in, like getting the space ready to be utilized. The completion date that we were given originally was July 2024. My expectation is for them to be probably actively using the facility by the end of this month, by the end of August at the latest. And I do know, after talking with at least one person close to the situation, that there's optimism that this year they might be using the practice facility, since it'll be new and shiny and fancy and all that good stuff, that they might be using the practice facility to host their training camp this year rather than going to Galveston or going to Lake Charles, or basically, often, every year the Rockets basically ship out and do training camp somewhere else. Now, they might still do that because it is a really good, kind of bonding experience for the players. And, it's important to have that time as a team to kind of come together. And you don't really get that time if you stay in Houston and everybody's still kind of I don't want to say isolates, but if everybody's staying at home and, you're driving into the practice facility every day instead of staying in a hotel and having team dinners and all this stuff. Now, you can still achieve a lot of that while living in Houston. It's not that you can't bond together. It's almost, so I don't know. We'll see what direction the Rockets ultimately go, but there is a chance that they do host their training camp here in Houston, which, hey, I'm not going to argue that because I've traveled for training camp last couple years and it's always a lot. So I'd rather just have it here in Houston. That'd make my life a lot easier. On the jersey front, a lot of Rockets fans for what feels like years now have been clamoring for a rebrand. A lot of Rockets fans really want to go back to the ketchup and mustard. And hey, I don't blame you as I look back at the Hakeem Olajuwon jersey I have hanging behind me. Those are some of the cleanest jerseys ever made, and they look fantastic. I would love to bring them back. Now, I will say that the only thing I've heard as far as a potential jersey rebrand, and I heard this from a couple different people, is that the Dunksternaut jerseys were such a big hit that they were heavily considering, and I don't know if this is something that I heard back during the regular season, so I don't know if this is still a thing or not, but they were looking into what it would take to make the Dunksternaut their full-time official jersey logo. There we go. Sorry, I was blanking on the word. Or at least a permanent secondary alternate at a minimum. The Dunksternaut was just such a big hit. The jerseys looked so clean. Originally, when they announced them, they were only slated to do a certain number of games. And then I believe last year they increased the total number of games that they ran the Dunksternaut jersey for, just because they were so popular amongst fans. I'd be content with the Rockets just swapping out their current white jerseys and just making the Dunksternaut jerseys their full-time, I forget the difference between the icon and the city edition and the whatever, I can't keep track of it. Home, away, road, alternate. I'd just be down for them to get rid of the super duper plain white jerseys that they have right now and make the Dunksternaut ones the at least full-time alternate logo. But there were at least a couple people within the organization that were at least exploring the possibility of that being something that they could do. Now, it's worth noting that the NBA is usually super strict about this stuff, and there's it's not as simple as just swapping it and then boom, next season you're good to go, because they've got marketing deals to take care of and merchandise contracts and agreements that they come out with, and they make all these jerseys in such bulk quantities well before the NBA season even gets here. So there's all this red tape you got to get through to be able to make a significant change, changing one of your jerseys or doing a complete jersey rebrand. But at a minimum, I'd be excited if they could just add the Dunksternaut as a permanent jersey. So we'll see what ultimately happens on that front. So that's what I have as far as updates there for a potential rebrand. Sorry to let you down if you were hoping for a ketchup and mustard throwback. Not out of the realm of possibility. I know that there are a lot of fans of the ketchup and mustard within the Rockets organization, so maybe it'll make a comeback one day. But the last thing that I have here for us on our Monday edition of Locked On Rockets is Mondays with McVay, our newest segment. So Jack McVay, who the Rockets recently signed to a two-way contract, the pro hooper coming out of the NBL, currently playing for the Boomers, Team Australia, alongside Jock Landale. He has a very, very, very active Twitter feed. And on said Twitter feed, he shares motivational advice, support messages. I don't know what you would call it. Inspirational messages, maybe. And so I've taken this new idea. We're going to run with this for a little while, at least until it starts getting on people's nerves, maybe. But every Monday, if we post a show on Monday, we're going to visit some of these Mondays with McVay tweets, because that's what he had. He has a newsletter called Mondays with McVay if you enjoy his motivational or his inspirational content. So let's go ahead and scroll through some of this. First one here. I got mad at my wife after my first Olympic game. You are so talented, she said. It's not talent, it's dedication, I replied. One day you can wear the Aussie uniform, but are you willing to dedicate your entire life to trying? Strong message there from Jack McVay. Next one we've got here. Don't ride the highs, Jack. Don't ride the lows. Be present. Focus on now. I like that one. Next one we got here. What I'm enjoying the most about the Olympics. Becoming friends with my teammates, seeing how proud people back home are, competing against the best players in the world. Grateful every day for this opportunity. Let's go to this. We'll make this one the final one. We'll do 4 here on this one, and then we'll kind of space them out in future ones. From Jack McVay. Day 1 of being a rookie was a disaster. We played pickup, players picked teams. I was last. Not a single shot went in. Mitch Creek and Daniel Johnson cooked me. I wasn't good enough to be a pro. Sometimes you need a good wake-up call to make yourself change for the better. Okay, I like that. And if you're interested in keeping up with Jack McVay, you can either follow his Twitter feed and turn on those notifications, or you can go subscribe to the Mondays with McVay newsletter. So go check that out. But that's our segment for today. That's our Mondays with McVay, Monday Motivation with Jack McVay. So we'll probably have a few of those at the end of every episode moving forward on Mondays. He is a powerhouse. The content never sleeps for Jack McVay. He publishes at least a few tweets every day. That was just a small sample size of what you've got so far from him. So be sure to go kind of dig into the archives if you want to with Jack McVay. But that's going to do it for today's episode. If you want to, drop your comments or drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments about the power ranking stuff. Would love to hear from you guys there. Let us know how you feel about the Jack McVay stuff. Give us your thoughts on the practice facility, the jerseys, everything. Let us know everything in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.